Hello there, kia ora, and welcome to this week's The News. Hyundai is reportedly considering making a bid on the proposed new ferry replacements after a meeting between executives and Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters. Said a spokesperson for the company, "We are one of the few places in the world with the dedicated infrastructure to complete such a task. After all, that's why you chose us in the first place, before you cancelled. But if an idiot wants to pay us twice for doing the same job at a higher rate, since we can't trust the decision not to be changed again, then who are we to say no?" Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith is expected to be demoted shortly after a sporting incident that went awry last Sunday in a quote-unquote friendly game of cricket. The Treaty Negotiations Minister, who once had to confirm to media he was not in fact Māori, dealt the Prime Minister a bowl right to the part of the story nobody hearing or watching the news wants to imagine. Said the Prime Minister of the incident,
"Don't worry, Winston and David have the impacted body parts locked in a very tight vice, so they weren't all that damaged."
documents released under an OIA show Finance Minister Nicola Willis, seen here telling voters how many terms she expects National to be running the country for, was part of a steering group looking into how to handle the steps after cancelling the IREX ferry builds from Hyundai. The documents revealed the group had suggested careful planned communication with the shipbuilders and quick negotiations to consider the downsized option that was being considered, none of which happened, which show that even when they're directly involved in creating advice, this government still doesn't follow it. Research undertaken by Service Now showed that New Zealanders spent an accumulated 24 million hours on hold last year waiting for customer service. The worst offenders were financial institutions like banks and insurance companies, followed by government departments, which recorded an extra average wait time of 30 minutes per call over 2024. Said a spokesperson for the government, "Well, this is actually part of a very clever plan to increase tourism by making sure every person in the country knows the words to Bic Runger's Sway, which we plan to make everyone sing in unison to break the world record, thus making us famous, thus increasing tourism." Auckland Transport has reported an overall increase in usage, but a massive 12% drop in school children catching the bus since the removal of free public transport for children. Said Transport Minister Chris Bishop, seen here on a scooter which he crashed, spilling coffee on himself on the way to a National Party meeting in 2023, which is also his villain origin story in his mission to eradicate all forms of transport without coffee cup holders. See, our plan to increase alternative transport usage has worked. Adding congestion is an alternative to the way these kids used to take the bus to school. The Department of Internal Affairs has announced a new internal classification system which assigns identifiers or hashes to illegal material such as objectionable video content. Said Internal Affairs Minister Brooke Van Velden, seen here trying on her listening with empathy face for elections, this simple measure will help reduce the number of times our staff are forced to watch disturbing content which may negatively impact them, or show them how extreme some of our ACT voters have become. According to a new survey by Kindle, New Zealanders are checking their devices up to 50 times an hour and developing phantom buzz syndrome, where they believe a notification has arrived when it hasn't. Said one survey respondent, "Have you seen the world out there? There's something new and crazy like every 5 minutes. Of course we're always getting notifications." Air New Zealand CEO Greg Foran, seen here asking if customers on a flight had finished sucking on their lollies so he could take them away, has resigned from the national airline after 5 years in the job. In his resignation letter, Foran said that he felt the airline had been set up to continue its trajectory of growth and now was the time to move on. While no replacement has yet been announced, it's understood a former CEO, seen here pretending to be a plane, may be considering a return. After all, he might not have a job in Wellington for much longer. New Consumer Affairs Minister Scott Simpson, seen here showing an audience how much respect the party has for its leader, has had to hand off part of his portfolio that relates to the supermarket reform plans after he self-identified a conflict of interest, with a family member owning a supermarket. The role now belongs to Finance Minister Nicola Willis, who clearly listens to advice and understands the ramifications of government policy making. Said a spokesperson for supermarkets, "We look forward to working with Willis. The Korean shipbuilders and landlords in this country have clearly done well with her in charge, and we are sure we will too." Documents released under an OIA show that independent consulting company WSP reported to Waka Kotahi show that reduced speed limits in busy areas increased economic productivity, despite claims from the government that speed limit increases are needed to achieve those results. It found that on average, reduced speeds lead to 27 fewer injuries and fatalities on each stretch of road, so that every dollar lost on time between $2 and $10 was saved in costs treating injuries or dealing with deaths. The head of Waka Kotahi at the time the report was made asked ministers to consider ideological changes weren't necessary in the face of evidence-based decision making. Said Transport Minister Chris Bishop, "La la la la, I can't hear you." Former Prime Minister Helen Clark, seen here with an unfortunate growth at the UN, has questioned New Zealand's involvement in the Five Eyes intelligence network, which she claims has gone from quiet intelligence gathering to dictating policy amongst members, while raising concerns about the current US administration's ability to keep sensitive information secret. Said a spokesperson for the Trump administration, "Yet, New Zealand former lady boss has no idea how President Putin will treat sensitive data." And finally, this weekend, Upper Hutt is celebrating its unique place in Bogan history with beers, cars, metal, and mullets on display. Even Mayor Wayne Guppy got in on the action. The genesis of Boganism in the area was captured in the 1954 Mazengarb report, which looked at the, quote, moral delinquency of children and adolescents in the area on behalf of the government, which was sent to every home in the country to prove that no matter what generation we're in, young people with their strange haircuts and original thoughts are not to be trusted with the moral fabric or future of society. An outlook enshrined today by the way the coalition government treats both MPs and the general population under the age of 40. Anyway, that's this week's The News. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.